Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan Shapura, Senior Political Advisor at the European People's Party. On behalf of the EPP, welcome to this episode of EPP Family Talks. We are very happy today to be able to speak to Mr. Michael Murphy, Councillor for Tipperary County Council and head of the Irish delegation in the EPP Group in the European Committee of the Regions. Councillor Murphy, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
You're welcome, and thanks for the opportunity.
And I should say first as well, happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm wearing my green tie today. And I wanted to just first of all tell all of our viewers what St. Patrick's Day is all about, and if you have maybe a favorite St. Patrick's Day tradition.
Yeah, very appropriate question, Nathan, and you're putting me to shame because I'm not wearing my green tie. Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day to the entire EPP family, a very special day in the Irish calendar, a day that we celebrate one of our foremost patron saints, St. Patrick, a day that we use to, shall we say, reconnect, renew our relationships with the Irish community all around the world. Yeah, special day. Just to mention the greening initiative, an amazing initiative that sees the greening of significant buildings all over the world, not least in Belgium. I believe City Hall in Brussels is in green today. If it wasn't for COVID right now, I'd be preparing for our local St. Patrick's Day parade, polishing my vintage car, driving that vintage car in the parade. But look, alas, it's not to be. But to quote a famous St. Patrick's Day saying, you can take the man out of Ireland, but you cannot take the Irishness out of the man. But again, happy St. Patrick's Day to all.
Well, one striking thing about St. Patrick's Day, I think, is how, frankly, how universal it also is. Of course, it's Ireland's, as you mentioned, Ireland's patron saint, but it's been exported so successfully, as you mentioned, all over the world in such a positive way.
Yeah, look, it's incredible. And again, were it not for COVID, our government team, led by our Prime Minister, ministers would be traveling all over the world, connecting with world leaders. I know today our Taoiseach Micheál Martin will be connecting with the newly elected president of the United States. We're probably the envy of many world leaders in terms of the exposure we get on St. Patrick's Day. But look, it's something, we're very proud of our Irishness, our sense of place. And like I said, it's a day where we reconnect with the Irish community all over the world.
Well, as you mentioned, indeed, that meeting on the 17th of March every year, one of the great traditions in transatlantic relations, when a bowl of shamrocks is presented to the president. It's an enduring partnership.
Yeah, and this time last year, not to dwell too long on this question, Nathan, I was, what we call Cathaoirleach. I was chairman of my region, and I had the unique opportunity to travel to the United States. I was joining our own Taoiseach at the time, our EPP Taoiseach at the time, Leo Varadkar, and I was on a flight to Washington, very excited, but unfortunately, while I was in the air, of course, that particular event was cancelled. So the one opportunity I had in my life to visit the White House, I ended up coming back on the same plane I travelled over on, but it just shows the impact of the pandemic. Yeah, what a memory. And first of all, being invited to the White House and then not, in fact, getting there. Such a pity.
Well, maybe there'll be other opportunities in future. I know that Mr. Varadkar and Fine Gael are set to be back in leadership in another couple of years or so. So,
yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, let's first of all zero in on the local level. We ask all of our leaders to start these interviews about their own local constituency. So, could you just first of all update us what's happening in your constituency of Tipperary County?
Yeah, so as you said, my own region of Tipperary, and like every other region throughout the European Union, has been battered by COVID-19. We find ourselves in the midst of an unprecedented pandemic that continues to impact on what we perceive to be everyday normal life. Can I say, first of all, and I think it's very important, just over the last 12 months, and particularly at the local level, but this applies to every local and region throughout the European Union, just our incredible frontline workers their commitment, their dedication, their role that they've undertook over the last 12 months in terms of protecting us all from the virus. I'm very proud of the role that my own local authority, Tipperary County Council, have played over the last 12 months. In particular, ensuring the continued delivery of essential services despite the pandemic, particularly in the area of housing, planning, environment, water services, the community response, the enterprise response, that continues. I'm very much an optimist despite the challenges of the last 12 months and the challenges that lie ahead. And I know we talk about recovery later in our interview. We are vaccinating in accordance with the available vaccine supplies. We are scaling up all the time. I think we could do more. I think local authorities could play a greater role in the vaccination program. But look, very proud of the effort on the ground, in particular our frontline workers, but also the role that my own local authority has played as part of that response. I mentioned the provision of emergency services or the continuation of essential services, but also the flow of information, the work of IT teams, communication teams in our local authority. What has really been essential, Nathan, over the last 12 months is that flow of factual information. And again, the local authority has played a key role there. And I think in terms of dealing with vaccine skepticism, although a recent poll demonstrated at the local and national level here in Ireland that 85% of citizens will definitely or probably take the vaccine, nonetheless, there are still 15% that are still skeptical. And again, I think local authorities and my own local authorities could play a role in, shall we say, tackling that skepticism head on. And finally, the community and the enterprise response of the local authority as well. But look, I think we're going in the right direction. Fingers crossed. But look, it's not over yet, unfortunately.
I want to pick up on those things you mentioned with regards to health, with regards to economic recovery, but maybe pan out just a bit to talk not about your work sort of directly dealing with these things in your constituency, but on behalf of your constituents with colleagues representing other constituents all around Europe, and that's in the Committee of the Regions. So as I mentioned, you're head of the Irish delegation in the EPP group in the Committee of the Regions. You're also the chair of the Committee of the Regions Economic Policy Commission, so you're very involved in these issues. So several questions I want to ask you about your responsibilities at this level. And the first is about the Coronavirus Task Force in the EPP group in the Committee of the Regions. Could you maybe tell us what is the work of this task force? How is it that you partner with other colleagues around Europe to help get a handle on some of these questions?
The task force, Nathan, it's a really important step for us in the Committee of the Regions. I think it shows the commitment of our group to the COVID-19 measures. There's a real focus on sustainable economic and social recovery, the role that our villages, our towns, our cities and regions can play in that regard. Just to give you an example, the last meeting a number of weeks ago, we had an exchange of views with Madam Esther de Lange, MEP, and also Vice President of the EPP European Parliament Group, the Chair of the Working Group on Economy and Environment, a real good exchange of practices. We highlighted the need for better cooperation, for example, of border regions to ensure, that these ongoing health threats can be overcome. Clearly, and it'll be a theme, I'm sure, throughout our conversation today, the role of local and regional authorities, particularly, for example, in the formulation of national recovery and resilience plans is something I spoke at length myself. The burden that SMEs are facing, but also as well in terms of for example, future travel and travel being so important, tourism being such an important element here in Ireland. The ideas around and people's thoughts on EU COVID passports, vaccine certificates, the coordinated vaccine approach, the mistakes we made in the context of PPE. But it's really, it's a platform. It's an exchange of views, but I think it works really well. I've learned an awful lot from other regional leaders within the task force as well. And it's been hugely beneficial.
Well, let me ask another question about an upcoming initiative of the EPP group in the European Committee of the Regions, and I think I probably should have actually started with that. And that is an event on the 23rd that you're going to be involved with, entitled Recovery in the Post-Pandemic Age at Local and Regional Level. And when I think of the title, I think what you have over your right shoulder is extremely apropos. Europe starts in my village, my city, my region. So the question, I think, is in what way exactly, how should we think, or how should we understand recovery starting and needing to start at the local level, maybe in particular economically, as you were just mentioning with the RRF, Recovery and Resilience Facility?
Yeah, look, I spoke earlier today on this very matter, and I think at the outset I talked about my own region being battered by the COVID pandemic. You know, in fact, I think it is a fact, a reality check for us all, that every village, town, city and region throughout the European Union, Nathan, is in the eye of a perfect storm. The ambition, the resilience, the motivation of our SMEs has been tested, really tested like never before. And remember, when we're talking about SMEs, a significant portion of those are family-owned businesses, crucial, absolutely crucial to every local economy, crucial to the recovery, our SMEs, you know, and I like to think of us within the EPP as the party of the SME, the party of entrepreneurship. So for me, the SME is the very heartbeat of the European Union. And particularly, you know, when you think about it, you know, SMEs, family-owned businesses, they invest locally, they spend locally, and they hire locally. And for me, that's why it's so important that particularly SMEs that were viable prior to the pandemic get the necessary supports that they need, and financial supports as well. And that's why, as you mentioned, the Recovery and Resilience Facility is so important. That instrument that's at the heart of the EU recovery. And let me be very clear in saying that I think failure to involve local and regional authorities in national recovery and resilience plans, I think, will be detrimental to the recovery. Thankfully, here in Ireland, there is consultation going on at the moment with our national government in the context of the role of local and regional authorities in Ireland. If I could point to the first edition of the Committee of the Regions Barometer that really starkly reflected the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic on our cities and regions, and not, you know, through your normal typical geographical disparities. We recently, the COR, we conducted a joint survey, Nathan, with the CEMR, the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, and unfortunately the results were not good. Despite the consultation ongoing here in Ireland, it's only a minority of governments that are consulting with local and regional authorities. And further on, that survey demonstrated that it's even a lesser minority that may take on board the role of local and regional authorities in the recovery. So let me repeat, Nathan, for me, failure to involve local and regional authorities will be detrimental to the recovery. I believe, and I strongly believe, that local authorities are best positioned to provide those supports with the precision that's ultimately needed, urgently needed at the local level. And for me, it's not about inventing, and perhaps, new supports are welcome, but some of the existing supports just need to be refinanced, and they have a proven track record in terms of delivering for local SMEs on the ground. So for me, Nathan, recovery must be a partnership. It must be a three-dimensional partnership. It must be a partnership with a European, national, and local and regional dimension. I mentioned earlier, our frontline workers and their incredible efforts over the last 12 months. But for me now, it's about passing the baton to a new set of heroes, our employers and workers, and delivering the support that they so urgently need. Some of them, sitting on unsustainable debt. It's so important to get cash into these businesses. And again, the importance of the recovery and resilience facility in this regard. And again, I'm going to strongly advocate for the role of local and regional authorities. It's an absolute must.
Such an important point. I know many of your colleagues in the EPP group and the European Committee of the Regions have stressed very much this idea of consultation as well, and it's very much in line with the EPP's core value of subsidiarity, taking decisions at a level as close to citizens as possible. You've stressed this point in recent meetings as well. Maybe I could just follow up on this point and ask, with regards to the recovery fund, so the next generation EU funds as administered by the RRF, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, how can regions like yours, like Tipperary, benefit from these recovery funds?
Look, I think it's not just Tipperary. It's obviously every region. In the context of Ireland, Nathan, we're talking a significant sum of money over the lifetime of this mandate. I think just on recovery and resilience alone, I think upwards on 900 million. Let me also throw in, and dare I mention the word Brexit, Nathan, and the impact and the ongoing impacts there, and that shouldn't come as any surprise given our significant levels of trade intensity with our UK neighbours and the impact that Brexit is having. But also, I suppose that points me towards the Brexit adjustment reserve. So these are very important instruments, huge sums of money. And, we talk about, and it's so important, and there is an emphasis obviously within the Recovery and Resilience Facility in terms of the green transition, digital transformation, and again, this is what our SMEs need on the ground. They need support. They need support to make them more resilient. They need support to accelerate that digitalization, to facilitate that green transition. It's just been an unbelievable 12 months. And, I talked about, me being part of the EPP family and my view of the EPP family being the party of the SME, being the party of entrepreneurship, and I have to say we do. And, while I talk passionately about that three-dimensional partnership, I do believe we have that partnership within the EPP family, and that's most welcome.
Thank you for that. And let me ask you one final policy-related question, and it's a party political question, and that is, when you look, obviously we're not finished with this crisis yet, but now, as you mentioned, your trip last year to Washington was canceled mid-flight, so we've been basically in the acute form of this crisis for about a year now. When you look back over the past year, how have you seen the EPP group in particular, starting with the Committee of the Regions, playing a leading role? And what do you think, looking forward, the real lessons will be for future pandemics, future crises of this nature which might occur?
Yeah, for me, Nathan, and particularly reflecting, in terms of my role within the Committee of the Regions, the strength of the EPP, being present in all 27 member states at all level governments. I believe that EPP-led villages, EPP-led cities, regions have been, taking concrete actions on the ground. I think there's some excellent examples of that. I talked to a colleague earlier, the regional government of Piemonte in Italy, which opened a hospital to assist patients who have overcome the critical phase of COVID. Another region in Spain of Murcia, another example, it launched Tele-Educate, a platform to help students with their studies. At the national level, can I, plug the role of our Tánaiste Leo Varadkar? At the European level, I think we have a very strong EPP European Parliament group delegation. These are just some of the measures taken by EPP-led local and regional authorities across Europe. For me, the EPP, the local and regional representatives, were the bridge between each corner of Europe and Brussels. And I do believe, again, through, and forgive me for repeatedly saying this, but through that multi-level of governments, I think Europe can deliver a quicker felt recovery that reaches the citizens, helps to rebuild and consolidate social resilience. And of course, in layman's terms, social resilience is living better lives. But I'm very proud, of the role that the EPP family has played, and I've no doubt will continue to play into the future.
I think some of these positive examples, these positive stories are they're so helpful, and maybe in the midst of so much bad news that we've seen over the past year, it's easy maybe unfortunately not to focus on them as much. So thanks for that reminder of so many positive examples of solidarity, of good ideas being put forward to actually help people, real citizens on the ground, so that their lives are better, as you mentioned. We'd like to finish with one more personal, more informal question, as we do with all of our EPP Family Talks guests, and that is just, although it can be a policy-related answer, of course, as you like, but is there a book or a series or a film which has caught your attention recently, which you would recommend?
Yeah, good question. Reflecting on the last 12 months, and we talk about that accelerated digital transformation, and I'm not talking just in terms of, e-health, e-commerce, home working, but the whole area of digital entertainment. And I do find myself, Nathan, unfortunately, watching a lot of Netflix at the moment. I'm not too sure if this is the kind of answer that you're looking for, but if I'm to recommend two crime series, excellent crime series on Netflix, I'm going to recommend Line of Duty being one, and the other being Unforgotten, both BBC productions, but really, really watchable. I suppose, given the day that's in it, I have to recommend two Irish books. One is That They Might Face the Rising Sun, written by John McGahan, an excellent description of life in rural Ireland, with many, many memorable characters. Really good read. And the second, of course, and again, because it's St. Patrick's Day, I think you should all read a book called Irish Isms by Ronan Moore, a book of Blarney, blather, blessings, and everything else about everything else we say in Ireland. And I think that book will help you understand our unique and famous sense of humour.
Well, thank you for that. I think we could honestly do probably a whole interview just about Irishisms and about the incredible richness of Irish literature, Irish folklore, Irish storytelling. So thanks for the window anyway into that very rich world, and for your ideas, for your work in your constituency and in the EPP group in the Committee of the Regions. On behalf of the EPP, Mr. Michael Murphy, thanks so much for your work. Councillor Tipperary and head of the Irish delegation in the Committee of the Regions, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we look forward to other opportunities to work together.
Thank you very much.
All of our viewers, thanks for tuning in to this episode of EPP Family Talks. See you next time.